We move from financial wellness, where she said we should listen to our wallets and what they're telling us, to now talk about physical wellness, where we will have Barkha Dutt in conversation with Major General Vikram Dogra. Barkha Dutt is an Indian television journalist and author. She was a part of NDTV's team for 21 years. She's won many national and international awards, including the Padma Shri, India's fourth highest civilian honor. At NDTV, Barkha Dutt was the host of the weekly award-winning talk show, We the People, as well as the daily primetime show, The Buck Stops Here. Her reporting of the Kargil conflict in 1999, including an interview with Captain Vikram Batra, brought her to prominence in India, and she has since covered conflicts in Kashmir, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Iraq. Barkha has written many columns for national and international newspapers. So, without further ado, can we please have a round of applause for Barkha Dutt? Welcome, Barkha. It's wonderful to have you here
again. Thank you so much.
So Barkha will be in conversation with Major General Vikram Dogra, a recipient of the Sword of Honor and Gold Medal from IMA. He gained combat experience in Jammu and Kashmir and was part of the United Nations peacekeeping forces in Angola, Africa. A committed sportsman, he cycled from Leh to Chandigarh over 5 of the highest mountain passes, ranging from 13,400 to 17,600 feet. And in 2008, he did the Ironman Austria at the age of 58 to become the first serving Indian Army officer and the only general in the world to do so. In July 2019, he once again took on the Ironman competition in Germany and bettered his own time by 40 minutes. In 2022, at the age of 62, he did his third Ironman event in Barcelona, Spain. I think that deserves a round of applause. That's right. He is also a motivational and a leadership speaker, so we're really excited to have him here with us this afternoon. Let's hear it once again for Major General Vikram Dogra. Barkha, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and it's a pleasure and an honor to be in conversation with General Dogra this morning. Before I start, I know there are many distinguished military veterans in the audience. One of them is on stage. Colonel David himself has been, of course, a distinguished army officer, and there are many other generals. And I just want to take this moment to offer our salutations to the families of those who have lost their lives in the Anantnag attack in Kashmir. And I think if we look at our conversations today with that backdrop, perhaps we will better appreciate the kind of wellness, physical and mental, that is asked of soldiers, that is in a category all by itself. So I just wanted to underline that context this morning before we got talking, sir. Sir, I think of a soldier in the middle of an encounter. And I think, what does wellness mean to him? What is wellness, physical, mental, are the two really separate, mean to an officer who has to lead his men into battle? The battle can be insurgency, as we're seeing right now in Kashmir. The battle can be war, as we've seen in Kargil, or the battle can be a covert operation, as we saw with the surgical strikes or the Balakot strikes. What does wellness mean to a soldier? Because what it means to us regular folk is a very different thing. But here, life and death actually hangs on the idea of wellness.
Well, I think wellness to a soldier, especially when he's in combat or preparing for combat, is essentially the wellness or the well-being of himself and his comrades. And survival is important because you don't go to battle to die, you go to battle to kill the enemy. And that, I think, is in the forefront when you train, and is the motivating factor when you actually go into combat.
You go to die. That defines the idea of being well enough to take on your adversary in a very different way than it does for civilians.
No, what I meant was you don't go to die.
You go to kill, rather.
You go to kill.
You don't
Yeah.
go to die, you go to kill.
You go to kill. And therefore, you have to be mentally and physically robust and well trained. And that camaraderie with your, the people with whom you're going into combat, spirit de corps, that has to be so good that you should be able to achieve your aim without losses.
Yeah, I was seeing today at the funeral of Colonel Manpreet, 45 of his course mates were there at that funeral, and that camaraderie you speak about is at the core, I think, of one of the wellness principles in a soldier's life. Let's talk about you. 58, when some people in other walks of life are hanging up their boots, you're completing an Ironman. Being, as was already mentioned, the first army officer, serving army officer in the world to do so. Can you explain to our audience, some of whom may not know what an Ironman actually entails? Of course, it's 3 consecutive sporting activities, and it involves cycling, swimming, and running. But when I say it like that, I don't think a lot of people understand what it actually means. And I want to get into how you trained for it. But first, I think you have to explain to people here what it took from you and what you actually had to do.
Okay, the Ironman is the most grueling one-day endurance event in the world. And like she brought out, it's a triathlon consisting of 3 disciplines. You have to first swim. Yes. And you have to swim 3.8 kilometers, which is either in the ocean or in a lake, depending upon which place you're participating. Thereafter, you have to cycle 180 kilometers and then do a full marathon of 42.2 kilometers. And all these are back-to-back in a single day to be completed within 16 or 17 hours, depending in which country and which location you're doing this event.
Extraordinary. I think that deserves a round of louder applause. Can we really show the general some love here? Come on, let's have a louder round of applause there. You said it was grueling to train for it. And you also used this phrase, mind over matter, in many of your talks. How does mind over matter work when it comes to physical wellness?
Well, only if you can dream it, can you achieve it. And if your mind says no, then your body is not going to say yes.
So your mind never said no to you?
Well, my mind kept saying no all the while. And therefore, you have to use techniques to keep yourself motivated and keep yourself. I trapped myself in a way by using some of these techniques so that I don't quit. But the mind is always wanting to quit. But going back to your question, it's mind over matter. If you were to tell people today, just now, let's go for a 10-kilometer run, then most of them would say, no, we can't do it. But if you can say, I can do it, you will attempt. You may not be able to complete it. But then if you train, you will be able to complete it. And that's why I say it's mind over matter.
And when you were training for the Ironman, this is Delhi, it's polluted, you're a serving army officer, you have other more important things to do in your day job, and you end up training at night. You're cycling for your training from 2 a.m. to 9 a.m. Tell us about that.
Well, it was the motivation behind what I was doing. I was doing it for it was a personal mission.
Why was it so important to you?
That's a long story, but...
Tell us, we have time.
Yeah, okay. So, as was brought out in the introduction, when I passed out of the IMA, I was on the top of my course. I had got the gold medal, the Sword of Honor, and during my career also, I did 8 courses of instruction. I topped 5 of them. I got an alpha grading in all of them. I had an excellent command as a CO, as a brigade commander, as a div commander. And somewhere, I felt that now I'm sitting ready for being approved to the next rank. I was riding a high horse in life. And the mistake I made was I wasn't prepared for failure. I was so confident of myself, or I can say overconfident. And then when the results came out, my name wasn't there. And that hit me badly. I took it upon myself, feeling that somewhere I had let myself down. I started to hibernate. I felt humiliated. I felt I'd let my family down. And so I got into this zone which I would say was close to, you can say, being depressed. I wouldn't meet people. I would avoid meeting people. I was wondering what would they be saying about me because, how people talk. That this guy thought he was bigger than life, and there he is, he's a failure now. And then this carried on for about almost a year, in which time I started feeling a lack of self-esteem. I thought there's something wrong with me. That's why I was not approved. And but when this year was going on, I felt I needed to come out of this. And the only way I realized I could come out of it was if I took on a different path, something which I could do for myself to convince myself that there's nothing wrong with me. And then, I can take on any challenge that came to me. So I started searching for something difficult, something tough, and I came upon this event called the Ironman. And when I saw the distances, as people would have also, thought when they heard the distances, I thought this is impossible to do. And if I can do it, then I would prove to myself I'm okay. And so I started training for this. And I never told the army that I'm going for this because I trained on my own. And that's why I was doing it at times after getting back from my work, because that was the only time available for me to train.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, because I think not too many people are so candid about their moments of failure. Everybody wants to talk about success. Nobody wants to talk about their low points. I think one of the things, before I actually come to sort of the physical stress of what you did and what you continue to do and better your own records, one of the things that you've always spoken about is that wellness is about how you tackle adversity. Everybody can handle success in a certain way, maybe not always the best way, maybe not always the appropriate way, but success is easier than adversity. What did your low phase teach you?
It taught me failure. It taught me that failure is a reality. And it also made me stronger, because I lived through that 1 year and then came out of it. And when I actually did complete the Ironman, those ghosts which were in my mind disappeared. I regained my self-esteem. I started thinking that, okay, I'm okay, there's nothing wrong with me. And so this entire journey was something which changed my life. I became, you can say, I got to know myself better in these times. During my entire service or my life till that moment, I had not actually experienced much of failure. But this changed me. And it made me robust, it made me resilient, and it also made me understand that it's something that is part of life.
So let's come to how you actually trained. We've spoken briefly about how you had a day job, so you couldn't train in the day. It was hot, it was a polluted city. When did you sleep if you were cycling all night?
Well, 24-hour day.
Yeah.
And time management is something that I learned a lot in this time. So give away about 10 hours to work, because you spend 8 hours at office, coming, going, and stuff like that. So you have 14 hours left, and 8 hours is what I needed to sleep, because it was a physically enduring event. So that 6 hours that was balanced is all I could exploit. And therefore, if you have to exploit it for something like what I was doing, you have to sacrifice it elsewhere. So I didn't socialize. I cut down on family time, made it quality time. And that's how I managed to pull out time to train. And perforce, I had to train after office hours, because I couldn't tell my office guys that, listen, I'm off on a mission to start going for training for running or cycling and stuff. So I would come back, change, and run from 7 to 10 at night.
Amazing.
Because that was it was a good time to run. Delhi cools off at that time.
Yeah.
And I used to run around army headquarters, because by then everybody's gone home. So there's no traffic out there.
Yeah.
So I did that thrice a week, and twice a week I would swim at the same time.
Now, you said you were in this mental funk, you were sort of depressed before you started on this mission to do the Ironman. Once you started this strenuous physical exercise, what impact did it have on your mental state? Was it an immediate impact, or did you have to do and complete the Ironman before you felt mentally better?
Well, it was a very strange feeling that the more I trained and the more my body hurt, the better I felt. So I can't say that it cured me overnight or something, but yes, surely it helped me, because when you do physical activity, the endorphins,
The serotonin.
yeah, they make you feel happy. They're released. So that kind of happiness does come about, but the root problem got over only after I completed it. So my situation started improving, but I had to still go through it, and that was one of the motivational factors that kept me going.
Now you came to the Ironman as a serving army officer, as a soldier who has seen conflict, life and death situations, challenging situations, war zones, insurgency. How did that shape your approach to the training for the Ironman?
So, when you're training for something difficult, discipline is a very important aspect. If I was swimming and running at night or cycling at night, it wouldn't have been possible if I didn't have the self-discipline. And army taught me self-discipline. So these situations that we go through in the army, either during our training or during the various postings that we go through, or the conflict situations that you are privy to, that helps you understand what self-discipline is. And that self-discipline is what sees you through any difficult situation.
Was the Ironman tougher than being a soldier?
I think both are tough, but in their own domains. So I cannot, equate
them.
one. Yeah, I can't compare the two.
Yeah, it's apples and oranges. But when I'm listening to you, what I'm struck by is that you shifted the goal of achievement to something you wanted to achieve from yourself instead of looking at a definition of success through the eyes of others. Right? Earlier it was, log kya keh rahe honge, what are they saying behind my back, do they quieten down when I enter a room, you got into that funk. But you set your own goal. How important is that the benchmarks of success, we're all tempted to measure our success by how others see us. How important is it to reclaim that from other people and make it our own benchmark?
I think that's the most important. Because unless you look at yourself, when you look at yourself in the mirror every morning and you're happy with what you see, you cannot expect others to be happy with what they see. And that you only get when you have your self-esteem in place. So I think that's the most important. Your success should be for yourself. And therefore I keep telling people, look inwards. Don't compete with other people. Because everybody has a different story out there.
But that's easier said than done, right? I'm sure it didn't come easy to you also in the beginning.
Yeah, not at all.
What was that mental shift you had to make as you were training?
Well, I didn't really make any mental shift, but like I said, since I was doing it for myself and for my self-esteem, and I remained in the system because of the motivation that was there, at the end of it, this is what I took away from this experience.
In the earlier panel, somebody was talking about work-life balance, and personally, I think that there are certain professions in certain spaces that don't allow it, where that phrase is meaningless. You have to have a very structured life for it to have, apply to your life. Now, did you have to throw that out of the window because you were working, and then you needed your sleep, and then you had that 6-hour window in which you were training? So you needed, you needed for that aim, at least in that phase of your life, to be put aside. You couldn't give equal time to all parts of your life.
Actually, work-life balance is a very relative term.
I agree.
And it varies from person to person.
Absolutely.
And so maybe it is determined by what you are seeking in life.
Right.
And therefore, at that moment, my search was for my self-esteem, and I told you, I sacrificed social life. I trained 18 months, I never partied. My friends...
You didn't go out for one evening with your pals, with your buddies?
No, I didn't. I couldn't. And people thought I was arrogant and, he's got attitude. He's refusing, invites and stuff like that. So people don't appreciate that you're on a mission.
Yeah.
I told them I'm training. It didn't make any sense to them. So that was something I had to do, that sacrifice. And like I also mentioned, family time, maybe social media, and so much more that we do every day, which can actually be truncated or actually completely cut off to achieve what you want. So therefore, that time management, I said, is a very important issue.
So when we talk about intense physical exercise, there is something in it that asks you to be solitary, right? You're with yourself when you're running those 40-odd kilometers, when you're cycling,
180.
180. I mean, I'm just like feeling faint thinking of it. When you're running, the 3.8 kilometers, you are alone. You are alone with yourself. You have to spend a lot of time with yourself. Now, many people are scared to spend time with themselves because you have to confront your mind, you have to confront the thoughts in it, your body sometimes rebelling. If your body isn't rebelling, your mind is rebelling. And not many of us are used to being with ourselves for extended hours. How did that work?
So, as I started this training, I learned, because I also did a lot of research and reading on how to make this happen efficiently. So, people are of the opinion that if you're going for, say, a run, they listen to music.
Yeah.
So, what happens when you listen to music is you're distracting yourself. You're not being mindful of what you're doing. You're not in the moment. But if you're going for a run, you should be doing it because you enjoy it. And for that, you have to be with yourself. So there are techniques. I used a technique called, the breathing technique, which is also used in meditation. For example, in running, I would synchronize the fall of my feet with my breathing. So you say 3 steps, you exhale. The next 3 steps, you inhale. And you follow that rhythm. And as you get into a long run, say you're doing a 20-kilometer run, after about half an hour, when this rhythm sets in, you actually get very mindful. You are within yourself. You can even meditate. In fact, I had an experience like that during the event. But
during the actual event?
Yeah, during the actual event.
Talk about it.
Yeah, I will. So when you do this, you are focusing on yourself instead of your mind wandering. And you will find thoughts will keep coming into your mind. You'll be wondering, what are you going to eat tomorrow? You have a meeting, you have to... So you don't need to block those thoughts. You let them come and pass through. Because the moment you block a thought, it gets highlighted. So let the thought pass and get back to your breathing technique. Now, when I was doing the Ironman, I had finished my 3.8 kilometer swim. I was 150 kilometers into my cycling, and I was really, really low on energy. My eyes were blacking out. I had actually a gel which I was to have, a protein gel, but I couldn't locate it. And there was...
And you couldn't locate it because you were kind of lost?
No, it was, you carry them at the back of your pocket. Right. So it was difficult for me to reach it while cycling, and I couldn't find it. I thought I'd dropped it. And there was no station available where you could, where I could nourish myself. And so I was getting these, the road was blackening, and I was getting giddy. And that time, I remembered about this technique which I had followed of, synchronizing your breathing, and I synchronized that with my cycling. And about 10 minutes into this, I got transformed, and I connected with my mother who had passed away 5 years ago. And suddenly her face was there, very bright. She was smiling, and I had goosebumps. I had tears coming down my eyes, and I had this surge of energy which came in. And I completed the balance 30 kilometers. And I didn't know at that time what it was. But when I got back after the Ironman, I researched. And lots of people have shared these experiences if you go onto Google.
So there's a kind of transcendental moment.
Yes. You can get actually transformed from where you are, because that's what happens when you meditate. And this is, so people can meditate while running.
Do you think that that's because you're pushing your body and your mind to the very edge of its capacity, and that's where that sort of meditative rhythm comes from?
Probably. I will not be able to comment on that because I'm not an expert. But yes.
But what was your own experience? Like, what does it feel like? Does it feel like you're kind of out of your body?
No. I just felt this surge of energy from my mother. And I could see her smiling. And, it was a very emotional moment.
Yeah.
That's why I got tears in my eyes. And the surge of energy helped me do those last 30 kilometers. And that changed the outcome of what I was doing that day. Otherwise, I would have to drop out the way I was going at that moment.
Extraordinary.
Yeah.
Now, I know a lot of people would want to know, what were you eating when you were training? Were you eating?
Yeah, of course.
It sounds to me like you were not sleeping your 8 hours, though you're saying
I
you
was
were.
Sleeping and I was eating a lot.
Yeah. What were you eating? Tell us, what was a day of, what was the regimen like?
So, it's the fuel which gets you going.
Yeah.
And that fueling is very important.
Yeah.
And there are 2 kinds of fuelings. One is before the race, which is every day. And then on race day, it's totally different. And both are very important. Now, before the race day is very simple. You work out how many calories you're burning, and you must consume those many calories.
Right.
But of course, in the right proportion of the protein, the carbohydrates, and you must have the vitamins which are essential for you. So there's no
So
great...
you were having regular meals?
Yes, yes. I was having more than the regular meals because my metabolism was so fast.
Correct.
I was hungry every 3 or 4 hours. And the, the food I could consume orally was not enough. So I had to supplement it by, these energy drinks and protein shakes so that I could sustain myself. Because beyond a period of time, if you don't have good nourishment, you not only start feeling tired, your face shows it.
Yeah.
It starts hanging, and that's a signal that you're not eating enough. But on race day, you can't do all that because you are going to perform.
Right.
But you need the nourishment because your event is over 15, 16 hours.
Right.
You also need the correct hydration. So there's a lot of science there because there are these energy gels available which are 32 grams sachet, which give you 100 grams of protein, 100 grams of 100 calories. And that sustains you for about half an hour. Because the
But
amount...
then how many of those can you have on race day?
Yeah, so you have to keep having something because the amount of calories you're consuming, which you're burning, is in the range of 8 to 9,000. And all you can ingest is only 240 calories per hour. If you have more than that, you get bloated.
Right.
And then you get nauseous.
Right.
So that's the kind of balance you have to retain, and the shortfall of these calories that you're taking and burning gets covered by the kind of training you've done. So if your body has got used to training, only then you'll be able to sustain.
So I know a lot of people inspired by you might say, is there an age which is too old to start training for this?
Not at all. And I must tell you, the person who actually is my idol, she's a woman.
Oh, really?
And she doesn't know that I'm inspired
Yes.
by her. So I must tell you about her. She's a nun in the United States.
Okay.
And at the age of 52, at 48, she was introduced into running by a priest.
Okay.
At 52, she did her first Ironman.
Wow.
And thereafter, she has done it 40 times. 40 times.
And is she still a nun also?
Yes. So if you go on to YouTube and type Iron Nun,
Yeah.
you will find her there, Sister Madonna. She was the face of Nike at 86,
Wow.
and now today she's 90. So you're talking about 58 or 62. Here is a living example.
But you were a soldier, so you were reasonably fit anyway. To people in this hall who might say, okay, listen, I want to do this too, what would
Anybody
you say?
can do it. Anybody out here can do it, provided. The catch is you have to train. You must train. And once you train, you'll be able to do it.
Now, one of the things you've always urged people to do is to seek the new. Try something new and move yourself out of your comfort zone. But a lot of people are scared of risk. They hold on to the status quo. Why is it so important to push yourself out of your comfort zone?
See, comfort zone, as the word says itself, is something that you do on a daily basis. And the moment you need to achieve something higher in life or something different, you have to move out of your comfort zone. And one of the reasons why people don't succeed in life is because our hesitation to move out of our comfort zone, even when we know that doing so is good for us. We want status quo.
Yeah.
We want the things
It's
that
comfortable,
we are...
it's
absolutely.
familiar.
Absolutely. So that's why I think it's very essential, whatever field you're in. It's not only about the physical part I'm talking of, in your daily lives, everywhere.
But it's not for everyone, right? A lot of people are very play it safe kind of people.
No, I think everybody can do it. Probably the adequate amount of motivation may not be there. The motivation might be lacking, or they're not aware as to how they can also push themselves to get out of the comfort zone.
Let me ask you this. If you hadn't gone into that mental funk, if your self-esteem hadn't been shattered, do you think you would have ever been an Ironman achiever?
Maybe not. Maybe not. Because I had a purpose. And that's why I keep talking of the motivation. You need to have that goal which you must set for yourself, whatever be the reason and whatever be the goal. But goal setting is a good way to remain motivated. And for me, it was this.
We have 2-3 minutes left. Let me ask you in the end to talk about how this has changed you. If you were to look back at your life before and after this kind of very intense, goal-focused, defined physical mission, because it is a mission, how it has changed you. Were you a different guy before and after? What would you say?
Well, maybe it's made me more humble. I used to come across as a very arrogant guy.
Were you arrogant, you think?
I never thought so. People did. So maybe that was one change which came about.
But people also judge confident people too easily.
Maybe. So, but since you asked me the
Yeah,
question, so
sure.
I'm giving you the answer.
Sure.
And also, I feel that I have understood that you can achieve things which otherwise seem impossible to even imagine. And for that,
Be generous with your applause. Don't hold back. Yes.
thank you. And for that, you need to actually persevere.
Yeah.
You need to work. There are no shortcuts in life. And today, we all are looking at shortcuts, quick fix solutions. And this is what I actually think, this is the way I think I've changed. I became calmer, I became focused, and I became maybe easier at taking on difficult situations. Like when COVID came, it didn't bother me. I was happy that COVID came, and we had 2 years of peace and quiet, and like somebody brought out initially, it was a good time for bonding and doing things without running
Reconnecting.
around.
Yeah.
So I don't get shaken up now by situations which are difficult and which may want more than what you normally give.
Other than the chemical evidence that your serotonin levels actually go up when you exercise, what is the connection between the mind and the matter? What is the connection you have experienced
See,
between
like I said
these
earlier,
two
yeah.
ideas of wellness, mental and physical?
So mentally, you have to first convince yourself mentally. You have to first decide mentally that you can do it.
And where will that strength come from?
Well,
Some might ask.
That strength comes from motivation. That strength comes from pressures from outside or from within. So you can use techniques of both these and then get motivated. And only once your mind decides, can you then execute it. That's where these linkages there.
So if you had to, in the end, explain to the audience here, the one thing that stays with you when you go through these grueling 17 hours, what do you carry back with you when it's over? You've bettered your record, you've matched your record, and you haven't given up with one, you've continued to do this. What is that thing that you carry back home with you?
I think the only thing you carry back home is satisfaction. You feel happy that you have achieved what you set out to achieve, despite it being considered to be so difficult and the most difficult enduring event in the world. So it's just a satisfaction. And that satisfaction then is the catalyst to everything else which I spoke of, the changes that I found in me.
Well, General Dogra, it's been a really inspirational 30 minutes. I was looking at the clock. I don't even know where the time went. Absolutely fascinating. Our salutes to you. And let's hear it for General Dogra. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. We'd like to request General Devraj Anbu to please join our guests on stage to present them with a token of our appreciation.